Committee. We've been meeting the past few years to advocate for childcare for London and Ontario in the early years. To get started, we're going to do a land acknowledgement. So if Brooke Babington could start that now, that would be great.
We would like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Lenape, and the Attawandaron peoples. This land is connected to the London Township and Sombre Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. LCCN carries out business on this land and believes it is important that our committee stands in solidarity with the Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. There is a growing urban Indigenous population who make the City of London home. Additionally, there is a new Indigenous Childcare and Family Center available in London, Nishwaznagong Childcare and Family Center. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations. LCCN members share a common purpose of supporting children and families in this community, so we must stand in solidarity for all children and all families.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Now I'm going to introduce our panelists for this exciting event. So I will start with Jeff Rice. So Jeff Rice is the Human Resource Generalist at Execulink Telecom. Execulink was founded in 1904 and has evolved from a small independent local telephone company into one of the leading telecommunication providers in Ontario. The company located in Woodstock, Ontario, prides itself in hiring and investing in local employees. Execulink believes in building positive team relations with a family-spirited approach and investing and donating to projects and programs that take place in communities where it operates. Jeff has 2 daughters and is an assistant coach with the Ingersoll District Minor Hockey Association. Welcome, Jeff. Next, we have Kate Graham. So Kate Graham teaches researchers, writes, and speaks about politics in Canada. She holds a PhD in political science and teaches at Western University and Huron University College. Kate is the creator and host of the Canada 2020 podcast, No Second Chances, about women in Canada's most senior political roles, and recently published her first children's book, Govern Like a Girl. Kate is the co-chair of the Ontario Liberal Party's 2022 platform and is working to earn the support of the people of London North Centre in the 2022 election. Kate lives in Old East Village with her partner Jessie and daughter Flora. Welcome, Kate. Next up, we have John Baptiste Nakoma. John Baptiste has been serving as Executive Director for London French Daycare Centre since 2015. London French Daycare Centre operates in French and has offered centre-based childcare services since 2014 and home-based childcare services since 2021. Their goal is to promote and preserve the French language for Francophone families in London. John Baptiste believes that the future of young children depend on our actions today. He's married with 3 children who all attend Francophone elementary school. Welcome, John Baptiste. Next up, we have Kelsey Swans. Kelsey is a registered early childhood educator, currently working in a preschool classroom at London Bridge Childcare Services at the Piccadilly Place location. With a bachelor's degree in psychology from Western University and early childhood education diploma from Fanshawe College, she is a strong advocate for the profession. Her passion and experience working with young children has reinforced her decision to have a career in the early learning field. Kelsey is active within the London Bridge organization, facilitating pedagogical conversations, writing and co-curating the family newsletter, and participating on several committees. In her free time, she loves to read, paint, and go on adventures with her daughter and husband. Welcome, Kelsey. And last but not least, we have Nicola Rock. She is a registered early childhood educator, currently completing year 4 of the Bachelor of Early Childhood Leadership degree at Fanshawe College. For the last 3 years, she has worked in toddler preschool and school-age programs at Creative Beginnings Childcare Center. Nicole is a member of the College of Early Childhood Educators and has a passion for advocating for all children having access to quality early childhood education and care to fulfill their full potential. So welcome all guests. Thank you so much for coming. I will just quickly state my name's Kara Pilak again, and I'm the Executive Director at Oak Park Cooperative Children's Centre here in London. So the first question we're going to start with is what does childcare mean to you? So Jean-Baptiste, let's start with you. So what does childcare mean to you?
Thank you, Kara. Uh, to me, a childcare is an environment that meant to play a role in a child development. It is also meant to support families and to build a community. And it does create jobs in societies. So I would say it's a combination, it's a system that plays different roles, and that meant to build a good and a viable society and a future for children, and everybody support families so they can have a time to do other activities that will also improve the life of community.
Thank you. That's a great first answer for us. Next, I'll ask the same question to Kelsey. What does childcare mean to you?
I mean, childcare is my career, so it's a huge part of my life. My daughter's in childcare. I spend a lot of my time working in the field, experiencing the field through the eyes of my daughter. And I think that like childcare is responsive, it's intentional, and it's got the ability to change the world. I mean, when we start with our youngest children, we can build citizens who speak for change, who stand up for change, who can make the world a better place. So I think it's important to start those kinds of qualities in humans as early as we can.
An amazing answer. Thank you so much. Kate, same question to you.
Well, first off, thanks so much for the invitation to be part of this. And I do not know how to follow those two answers. My response is very similar. To me, childcare and early learning is the single most powerful tool that we have as a society to prepare for the future. It is the health of families. It is our prosperity. And we'll get into that, especially right now, supporting women in particular getting back to work. And it is the way that we build a healthy, strong future for our province, our city, and our country. So it's, I'm talking from a policy lens. It's one of the most important things for us to be investing in. I know we'll get into this later on as well. Just as a new mom and someone who has benefited from the amazing childcare we have in London, it has been totally transformative for me and for my daughter. So it's got a huge personal impact and really important societal role.
Thank you, Kate. Jeff, what does childcare mean to you?
I'd like to so first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'd like to build on something that Jean-Baptiste said. It's meant to support a family. And for me, in this setting, representing an employer, supporting families is imperative for us from a recruitment perspective, from a retention perspective, from a quality of life and work-life balance perspective, for a positive, family-oriented business type perspective. Having quality, accessible childcare available for our new parents is imperative to allow parents to either return or remain in the workforce. That's
a great answer. Very with the times of COVID, and we've seen how much we need childcare. And lastly, Nicole, what does childcare mean to you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I agree with all the other panelists. They pretty much picked on every single element that I think too. For me, childcare is so important. I've been using it the past 13 years with my own children. So every child of mine, I have 4, has gone through the childcare system, both home care, center-based. It's where my heart is as well, being an educator. And it's just a great learning tool to have. And if every child could experience the early years and being in the childcare system, it's just another tool for parents and families to utilize and work together to create a greater community, and the supports it has, and and like everyone else said, for new families and to get back to work for mothers. I think it's just all really important, and to have that quality childcare, that's what we strive for, and that's what we're here for. So I think it's so important. I think every child deserves to really be in the earlier system.
Yeah, thank you all so much. What awesome answer to the first question. Yeah, just every child deserves quality care. So this evening, our advocacy group works with students. So we're excited to give them the opportunity to participate in this event. So they're going to be asking a few of the questions tonight. So first up, we have Amber Price asking the group a question.
Hello, everyone. So my question is, when you think of your connection with the childcare system, what is a story that comes to mind that reflects your own childcare experience?
So I'm going to start with Nicole on this one. Thank you, Amber.
Okay. Thank you, Amber. So for me, again, my own children were able to access childcare. And so from there, later in life, I went back to school in the ECE program, because I just loved my own children being in the center, and I saw what that did for them and how they were able to transition into school easier. They played with other children better. Like, there was just so much. I had more support because two of my children did need extra support. So it started where we knew that in childcare, instead of waiting, once they're in grade 2, 3, 4, I knew that when they were 2 and 3. So that helped. So from my own childcare experience, I absolutely loved working in the toddler room. That to me is like where my passion sits, and I love working with toddlers so much. So yeah, as a student, I got to actually go in and see what these educators did for my own children, and I was blown away about how much work actually goes into being an educator in a childcare system. And so my own connection would be my own children being in childcare, and then me as a student and as an educator working in the field. That's kind of how I'm here.
Thank you, Nicole. Would anyone like to jump in next after Nicole?
Sure.
Yeah. All right, we'll go Kate.
Sure. So the story that pops to mind for me is actually when my daughter first got a childcare spot. So like many in our community, I had a new baby. The day arrived where I was planning to go back to work, and I wasn't able to get a spot. I'd been on the list since when I was pregnant, and the spot didn't come up. And so, it was during a pandemic. I teach at the university and was teaching at home. We were doing Zoom learning still. And so I thought, okay, I can try to manage this all together. And I can remember one particular day, my daughter Flora, she was kind of on my lap and playing, and she just started to, she was getting upset. I wasn't paying attention to her. I'm trying to pay attention to my class. My partner had a meeting at the same time. And it was like, that same moment had happened 100 times, but it was a breaking point. I sat there, she's crying, my class is not getting the attention they deserve, and I felt like I was about to snap. And I knew that I couldn't, for mental health reasons, for other reasons, couldn't do that for much longer. And so I was really, really lucky when my daughter's at Arbor Glen, sent her on Adelaide, and that phone call saying that she had a spot available where I could spend my day focusing on work. She was getting incredible care and education from the teachers there, who have been nothing but phenomenal, like just absolute heroes to us. It has made a huge difference in her, in our health and well-being, certainly for me in terms of feeling like I can fully work and be able to do the things that matter to me professionally. And as a volunteer, it has been like, I cannot overstate how important that phone call was. And it came very shortly after that moment where I was like, this just can't work anymore. And of course, we know from the stats, 500,000 Canadian women left the workforce during the first year of the pandemic for exactly that same breaking point kind of moment. So for me, it was a very powerful reminder of just how badly we need amazing, accessible childcare spaces all across the province.
Thank you, Kate, for sharing that personal story. That's just so powerful, the image of you, trying to do both things, and just how apparent you can't do both, and you're not meant to.
Jeff, feel like you're bad at both of them.
Yeah. Jeff, would you like to speak next?
Sure. For me, it is about when my wife and I had two very young children, and my wife was getting back into the workforce after her maternity leave. It was about choice for us, and it was a very, very, very important choice on and the choice boiled down to dollars and cents, unfortunately, where it was a decision between spending all of one of our salaries for 2 spots in a childcare center versus, resuming a career for my wife and me continuing a career. And it was a very, very difficult choice at the time where, the 2 childcare spots were, please don't quote me, it was about $3,000 a month. And it was a difficult decision for us to make. We ended up making, in my opinion, the right decision with my wife going back to work and us, paying the childcare costs. But choice for us was a very difficult one. So that would be my experience.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That it's so great to hear these personal stories. We read about in the news, right? The high cost of childcare, but just hearing it from folks in the community, it really resonates. So thank you. John Baptiste, the same question to you. When you think of your connection with the childcare system, what is a story that comes to mind that reflects your own childcare experience?
Thank you, Kara. So to me as a dad, it's the memories my children still have. They when they go through the archive, and when they were attending day nursery, and the social skills they received that time, they are still using it at this point. So, and they do remember every time we would drive downtown, they have a good memory. They say, this is where I used to go, Daddy. So that means that just remembering where they used to go, they build a good connections. And they still have some names. The time, it was back in 2011. So to be honest, I feel so good to see that the kids were happy. They attended when they were 1 year old, and until now they still remember what they learned from there, and they are still using the social skills and or they got from their nursery to school now. So that's the memory as that.
Thank you so much, Jean Baptiste. It's just so great to hear the lifelong impact our early childhood educators have on the community and children. Kelsey, lastly, when you think of your connection with the childcare system, what is a story that comes to mind that reflects your own childcare experience?
So my connection to the childcare system kind of lies in what led me to this career and what keeps me here. I think back to my early educational experience with a lot of fondness. I remember looking forward to going to school every day. I felt supported and challenged. When I went to university, I finished and spent a few years working outside of the field, but I still found myself drawn to education. Like, I never really forgot the huge impact that those early experiences had on me. And as an adult, I can recognize that there's a huge amount of privilege attached to that. Like, there are so many children who don't have those same positive experiences. So that's really left me wanting to work to change that. I eventually decided to go back to school, pursued early childhood education, fell in love with the field. And since working in the field for the past few years, there's a lot of things that are keeping me here. Most obvious being the children themselves. I get to wake up every day, come to a job that's full of love and laughs, constant growth. There's a lot more to it than that, though. One of the biggest reasons that I feel so strongly about the field and I see myself here for the long term is because of the other passionate people that I get to work with and learn alongside. This is a dedicated group of people. They care very deeply about the work that they do, and they recognize that there's like a massive capacity for positive societal change that exists within their work. The people that I get to work with on a daily basis here at Piccadilly enthusiastically support everything I do, but they also challenge my thinking every day. The other educators in my organization, students from Fanshawe that I've mentored, educators I've spoken with in the London community and even beyond, everybody is so professional, open to new ideas, and has that desire to continuously grow and learn. And all of that has made me a better educator, a better colleague, a better human. The people that work in this field are so inspiring. And that's probably the biggest takeaway that I've had from my childcare experiences. So yeah, I'm really honored to have the opportunity to speak at a night like this. I'm always going to continue to advocate for this field and the people that I work alongside, because I need them to be here long term as well.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. That was such a powerful answer. And I just have to say, London Bridge is so lucky to have you, someone so well-spoken and passionate about the field. And I see the chat is lighting up. Toddlers are the cutest. Toddlers are busy and fun. Yes, they love the challenge. Yes, so beautiful, Kelsey, from Megan. Thank you all so much. So our next question is going to be around quality, and our next student is Zichen Lee, who will ask our next question.
So my question is about, what do you see as the most important aspect of the quality in a childcare environment?
Thank you, Zichen. Jean-Baptiste, would you like to start us off with that one?
Thank you. So first, I will start saying what it means quality in childcare. So myself, I see quality in childcare as a system. It's a combination that is linked in a different way. So in order to have equality, we need a good program, we need staff, we need infrastructures, we need materials. So that way you can build we can build a good system that works and that is supported in order to get to the quality. So I would say quality is an outcome of what we have to put together to get a good system that is working.
You're so right. Yeah, quality. Yeah, to get the system working. Nicole, do you have any thoughts on this question?
I do. When I think of quality, the biggest thing that comes to mind is consistency. And that's consistency with the program, consistency with the educators. Within my time in the program, I do see a lot of turnaround. And I know that's different things like burnout and low wages and maybe not as proper training as well. So I think for me, quality is having educators in a center that's regulated with proper training, utilizing our documents, utilizing the consistency of having educators not just staying in one space at all times and growing as well, but not so much as it considered a job. I find a lot of times we're seeing, you know what I mean, people coming in saying, oh, I just got this job, until I get something else. And it's like, no, this is a passion. This is supposed to be something that we go into and stay in and enjoy, like a lot of the chat saying that how they love to be with the toddlers. And yeah, so for me, consistency is key, and that's, you know, bringing in that national system as well. So instead of having all these different systems, we need one main one so everyone can run the same.
For sure, Nicole. I definitely agree. I hear system and want to go to Kate next.
Sure, I would agree with everything that's been said, but I'm going to be even more pointed about it. Work conditions. Conditions of work are the conditions of learning. And so wages, benefits, support for everyone who works within this system is paramount. We cannot build a quality system without valuing the work. And it's, you know, when we think about historically, you know, this is rooted in, as a patriarchal society, we have undervalued the work of women. We have traditionally considered the care of children to be primarily or even exclusively the role of women. And so now in a workforce that is predominantly female, we continue to see that it is not valued and compensated to the level that professions that, you know, ECEs compared to firefighters, different kind of workforce, different kind of pay structure, different kind of value. And if ever there was a moment where we need to be done with that, like let us name this what it is. You know, this is one of the key systems in a society, in our city, that we need if we want to be successful. And so valuing the work and making sure that it is a great place and a great profession to choose is paramount to our ability to build quality.
For sure, Kate. I thank you so much. I was actually thinking about that just today, about the wages compared to male-dominated careers, police, firefighting. So yeah, a really good point. Kelsey, do you have thoughts on this question?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything Kate and Nicole and Jean-Baptiste said. When I think about quality in a childcare environment, I go immediately to relationships. I think that these relationships exist on so many different levels and between so many different people. I think about the obvious interpersonal relationships, like the ones between the children and the families and the educators. I think about relationships between the educators that work together in a classroom. And I feel like quality in those relationships looks like intentionality, it looks like adaptability, it looks like being responsive to the 21st century world that we live in. Quality needs to be found not only in the childcare that's provided, but in like the diversity, the collaboration, consistency, and the growth of educator teams and the workforce. I think on a little bit of a wider scale, I think about the relationships between families who need childcare and with the actual system itself. The relationships that educators have with the organizations that they work for. And I think quality in those relationships looks like responsiveness and accessibility for both families navigating the childcare system and for educators connecting with leadership and their organizations. Quality relationships at this level also place a focus, I think, on individuality and professional learning for ECEs and early learning professionals. In my own personal experience, I felt very supported and celebrated by leadership at my organization anytime that I've brought like my personal passions and interests into my work with the children. And that's made a huge difference in not only the relationship that I have with the organization I work for, but also the connections I have in my classroom. It helps me feel like a confident educator, happy and excited about my professional growth, and that affects the quality of the care that I provide. And then I think about, even on a larger scale, the relationships that society has with the childcare field. I think about the way that early learning professionals are perceived by large groups of society. And I think that there's been a lot of important strides made in those respects, but like there's a lot further to go. At the bottom line, I think the quality of a childcare environment depends on the quality within and around the people that provide that care. So if those people feel undervalued, unrecognized, unappreciated, undercompensated, it's going to be reflected in the care that they provide. Children and families deserve high quality programs, and those programs are going to come from happy, engaged, reflective educators. Thank
you so much, Kelsey. What a well-rounded, excellent answer. I really appreciate your levels of, the connections between the child and educator, educator to, yes, mic drop is the right response to that one. Jeff, so for you, what do you see as the most important aspect of quality in a childcare environment?
For me, so again, I'll relate this back to an employment perspective. For me, it's about accessibility of childcare. It's about things such as hours of operation. Not every employer, works Monday through Friday, 8:30 until 5 o'clock. Some of our employees are, they start as early as 7 a.m. and they end as late as 11 p.m. And being a new parent, just returning to the workforce, it's sometimes impossible for them to accept a position with us because they don't have accessible childcare available to them, whether it be, it's too far away, to drive to, so not enough centers available in the area, or it's about the hours of operation. So for me as an employer, the most important is the accessibility factor of childcare for our employees.
For sure, Jeff, that's a great point. A lot of centers are based, the 7:15 to 5:30 schedule. So yeah, Ontario and Canada definitely needs more overnight. Yes, Julie, our home care representative here, licensed home child care, flexible model of care. So that would provide that longer care, and the national program would help to build that. Okay, so next up we have Jingyi Chen asking our next question about access.
Hi everyone, so for my question is, how do you see the current access to childcare?
Thank you, Jingyi. Let's start with Kelsey. So Kelsey, how do you see the current access to childcare?
I don't think that educators necessarily see all of the barriers that exist to accessing childcare, but we do see families who access childcare for so many different reasons. Some of them being like needing somewhere for their children to be so that they can be at work. Families who want early educational starts for their children, families who see childcare as the first step in connecting to other services, families who enroll their children for social interaction, and families who enroll their children to support their own mental health and well-being. Our job as educators is to be responsive and respectful in honoring the diversity of each family's reason for access and removing any barriers that we can at our level. We hear lots of different concerns about childcare access. We hear about language and cultural barriers. We hear about affordability, subsidy-related concerns, scheduling conflicts like Jeff just touched on, and lots of other ways that childcare isn't always responsive to the needs of children and families. As educators, we don't always know why the families in our care make the childcare decisions that they do. So the challenge lies in how to sufficiently and authentically support and improve access for everyone in our care. I'm reminded of a family that I've worked with, a family with a child who has experienced particularly emotional drop-offs every morning. The parent has often expressed concerns to us about missing work, concerns about possibly losing subsidy for their child. We knew that they're feeling guilty and uncomfortable leaving their child having huge feelings with us every morning. And on our end, we were trying to navigate being the only educator in the room and trying to support this child through that difficult transition while still properly caring for all the other children who are still there. We could have very easily told the parent that they needed to wait to drop off their child until there was more than one educator in the room. But our goal is always to remove the barriers that we can. So instead, we chose to move through it with the family and adjusted our staffing schedules instead. I think this really allowed everyone involved to feel heard, feel supported. And adjustments like that aren't always going to be possible in every circumstance. but when we work to make responding to families' needs a priority, it's easier to find those solutions and improve access for children and families.
Thank you, Kelsey. It's so, again, reiterating, so awesome to hear these personal stories going on in our community of, you know, your team providing great access to the children. So that's just awesome to hear. Kate, how do you see the current access to childcare?
Well, I think we've got to talk about the cost, and while not wanting this to be political, we need $10 a day childcare so that this is accessible and affordable for more families. I know there's so many people on this call who have been a part of the almost overwhelming chorus of people pushing for this within the childcare sector in London. I see Peter Fregascatos is on the call, Peggy Sattler's here, Terrence Kernan is here, I think Anna Hopkins, City Councilor is here. You've got people working across all levels of government, people in the community pushing for this. And it is a moment in time where we see provinces finally able to move because of the most recent federal budget. So post-pandemic, where we see the gender gap laid so bare, and we know that so many families are struggling, this is something that Ontario needs to jump on immediately. So for me, that is the number one thing that we should be pushing on, and I really appreciate the work of everybody on this call who is playing a hand in pushing for that. It's going to be a very, very good thing for people in our community when that happens, because it means, you know, for families where this is their number one or number two monthly expense, it means that it becomes something that they can reasonably manage while also having to deal with escalating housing costs and food prices and so on. So for me, in terms of access, $10 a day childcare is the direction that we need to be pushing as hard as we possibly can to achieve.
Thank you, Kate. And yes, I don't think it's too political to say we would all like $10 a day childcare.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you so much to our guests, Peter, Terrence, Peggy, and Anna, from our friends in politics. Jeff, the next question is, how do you see the current access to childcare?
So I can share a quick story from my professional life. I had an employee with two children, and she was pregnant with her third, and she was not using licensed childcare. She was using just a family member to care for her two children while she worked. She was working from home, and the relationship, the setup worked out very well for her. Quite suddenly, her family member was unable to continue to care for her two children, and she was unable to find childcare for her two kids, and was therefore forced to start her maternity leave earlier than she had hoped. Affecting her well-being. It was an upsetting situation for her, affecting her financially, as she was unable to continue to work, and affecting us as a business, because now we're losing an important resource in our organization, and that has a dramatic trickle effect when it comes to the service we provide to our customers, morale of the other employees within her team having to pick up a little bit of extra slack, which I don't think anybody likes, but and the situation itself was unsettling for her, for various reasons, but as an employer, it puts us in a challenging position to continue to operate at high service levels.
Thank you so much, Jeff, again, for that real life employer perspective. Nicole, how do you see the current access to childcare?
Not good. It could be better. Again, that universal childcare, the $10 a day would make a huge difference. We have that group we like to call the working poor. Very hard for families to have access to quality childcare with the finances, and especially now with everything rising. Childcare is just a lot of people will look at it like an extra mortgage payment almost. And that's, to me, very disheartening that their child can't access and grow within the early years because of finances, where we can end that. We can grow and move forward from that and allow more families to have the access like my own children did, watching them grow up through the years, and watching my oldest when they were in infant room. The educators, it was really a cool story, but the educators, they were kind of getting frustrated that all the children were just screaming when they wanted more food because they didn't quite have words yet. And so they started teaching them sign language. And so my son learned sign language, like more. So they'd all just sit at the table doing this and doing, the drink. And I thought, wow, like how amazing is that these educators took that time to learn themselves and to teach those children. And that continue. And that is a story we tell, at the dinner table a lot about, things with educators that happen throughout my children's lives, and that I wish all children could experience. And when I see those children going to kindergarten that weren't able to experience early years and how much they thrive in there and love it, I'm like, wow, but what if they were able to start even younger and grow even more from that? And I just, again, it all boils down to like, let's get this universal childcare system working for us. So yeah, that's what I have to share.
Thank you, Nicole. Do you mind if I ask a follow-up? Because you have 4 children, you said. How have you noticed childcare adjust or change, or has it changed from, when your first child started childcare and maybe your last child did?
So my oldest is now 18. So 16 years ago, I guess you can say, he started, and he was at a childcare center. And I guess when I was utilizing it then, I didn't understand how much went into it. And now when I look back, it's like, wow, that was amazing. And when I look at my 2 middle ones, they went to home daycare, and then they also went to, they did the after school programs with the childcare that I worked at. And then my youngest, being the newest of, being in the childcare centers, it has evolved, but I find, unfortunately, I'm seeing more turnaround and more like with the educators. I saw a lot of passion back then and a lot of extras. I still see it now, but it's not as much as it should be. And I think that boils down to wages and being overworked and just burning out even pre-pandemic. We do a lot of work as educators and put a lot of time and heart into it, that sometimes it's hard to stay in your passion when you can't provide for your own family. So over the years, I would say the systems have gotten better, like with the programming, using, the documents and trying to keep current. But with the staff, I would say that part to me is like the one that I think once, proper wages come in, and proper systems and support systems are huge. You might have 2 amazing educators in a room, but they just need that one support person to come in, during that busy time. And it's not there right now. So that part I find, but that's kind of what I've seen throughout the years of my 4 children kind of coming in and out of childcare.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That's really enlightening to hear the experience from, you have an 18-year-old to now. And just, I think you're right. It goes back to the wages and the turnaround. That's where we need that $10 a day childcare. Jean-Baptiste, lastly to you, how do you see, as an executive director of a childcare, the current access to childcare?
Thank you. So one thing that comes to mind right away is the cost. What I face every day is that sometimes the parents, they had to make a hard decision to to reduce the number of days the children has to attend because it's getting too much, or simply to withdraw the child completely and stay home with the children. That is one of the things that it's not only good for the parents. Sorry, it's bad for both the parents and the children, because the mom or dad cannot go to work, cannot leave the child alone to seek for a job just to improve the family income. The children is losing because mom is not stable, or dad is not stable to take care of the child. So the cost is a huge impact. The second thing is that the flexibility. So I had to decline if someone is asking me to get a child 1 hour before the opening time, especially this time where the staff has to work long hours. I feel so bad to say no, because I cannot add another hour to staff who is working almost 11 hours a day, because there is a shortage. Also, there is other duties they have to do related to this time we are going through. So, and the third thing is that when we talk about access, we sometimes we forget about the child right. We forget that there are some children who cannot go to childcare. So we have to look is that, if they stay home, are they receiving the care, the support they should have if they were in childcare? So sometimes you see that because of knowledge, it's not because we are dad, we are mom, we know how the child behavior, developmental, and so on and so on. It should be there to just to make sure the child is fully developing. But I have seen a lot that a child can even go to school without being in a child care because mom or dad didn't know that there are some conditions, some some special needs. Then at age of 5, they started dealing with special needs, where that could be avoided if the child had access to childcare at age of 1 or 2. So those are the 3 things that is I have seen as a manager, and now as a parent, I didn't know, but as a manager, I see that because I'm dealing with that every single day.
Kara, can I just jump in on?
Sure, go ahead. Yes. Because
I think what Jean-Baptiste you just said is so powerful, and we really don't acknowledge enough the role that centers play in educating parents. Like having a baby, I realized I actually don't really know anything about babies. I don't know very much about children at each stage. She's very different every month to month, and the kind of care that we've received from the center, resources for parents, being able to talk to someone who is an ECE and has seen, 100 toddlers, who has the same, thing that my daughter is trying to work on or so on. It has been like, it is education for families and for parents that is invaluable, especially in those early years. And I think it's one of those parts of the system that we don't talk enough about or acknowledge enough about, that childcare provides to families as a whole.
For sure, Kate, it's just, yes, we're educating the children, but the children educate us, and we're educating the parents, and the parents sometimes educate myself as well, right? So it's just a hub of education and connection and care, childcare centers. So the next topic is responsiveness. So we have Lexi Rancourt here to ask our next question.
Hello, everyone. My question is, from your experience, how has childcare been responsive to your needs both pre and post-pandemic?
So we'll start with Jeff for this question.
Gotta quickly get myself off unmute there, or off mute, I guess. The pandemic is, you know, I could go on and on about the challenges that that parents, that employers, that employees faced during the pandemic. You know, specifically with our organization, we were able to pivot quite quickly in order to move, you know, a good number of people from, you know, an in-office setting, you know, into a home setting. You know, we are a technology company, so it was almost expected that we would do that. And we were able to pivot again very quickly, but that brought up a number of challenges from a childcare perspective. Now parents were at home because their children weren't in school. Parents were at home, you know, with little to no access to childcare available. We had, you know, surprisingly to me, not as many as I thought, but we had a number of people who, you know, requested to be laid off in order to care for their children because they were unable to work and care for their children at the same time. We were able to, you know, to make concessions for those people. And I would like to point out that 100% of those employees were women. None were men. So it was, you know, removing women from the workforce and then them having to reintegrate back into the workforce. You know, the conversation about, you know, women being primary child givers, and Kate, I can't remember what you said. It was so well put about, you know, this expectation of women being, you know, the sole provider of, you know, for children. And that was our experience as an organization where parents were unable to care for their children and work at the same time, you know, similar to holding a baby while delivering a lecture. I mean, I can only imagine how challenging that was for you. So that would be our experience with that.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And 100% were women. That's, again, the personal stories in our community that we're seeing on the headlines right here in London. Kate, I'll go next to you. So from your experience, how has childcare been responsive to your needs pre and post pandemic?
Sure. Well, I can't take much to pre, I've only had a baby since the pandemic. And as I said, having access to childcare has been transformative for my daughter and for my partner and I. But just broadly on responsiveness, I would say I've been really impressed with how the sector has risen to the occasion of the pandemic. I mean, it's been enormously difficult everywhere for all of us, but even things like how you onboard a new family when you can't have, you know, when you have capacity limits in the space and when you're trying to limit contact. I think there's been a lot of really thoughtful approaches to how to get through all of this. If anything, I think the failing has been in how we connect these systems. So I was actually just speaking to someone from Denmark the other day, and I need to look this data up, but I was talking about the departure of women from the workforce, and they didn't have that experience because what they considered to be essential work included education, included childcare, included the supports that are needed for childcare providers, for example. And so, you know, they didn't see the same things that we did. And so even how we think about, you know, vaccine rollout will be coming, testing, you know, if you've got a kid and they have a runny nose right now and they need to go and get a test, making sure that we are prioritizing the connections into these systems that we know are so essential is, I think, the next step that we need to go to get through the rest of the pandemic. So within the sector, I think the responsiveness to the pandemic has been great, but making sure that we are really prioritizing the essential role that childcare plays in how we think about all of the other things that are needed for families is going to be really important.
Thank you, Kate. And you bring up a good point of the essentialness. Although many centers were closed March to June 2020, we were open from July on throughout all, the December closures. And we also had emergency childcare, I believe around April, May 2020 starting. So unfortunately in the media, though, it wasn't really highlighted that ECEs and childcare were on the front lines during that time. So again, it just goes to show the essentialness of the profession. Kelsey, from your experience, how has childcare been responsive to your needs pre and post pandemic?
When I think about my needs as an educator, the things that come to mind are time and space for professional learning, transparency from leadership and government, opportunities to connect and share thinking with colleagues, and a sense of wellness and health, both mentally and physically. I think those needs existed pre-pandemic. They continue to be important now, and I think they'll be relevant for a long time to come. The pandemic has definitely changed how many of those needs are being met. When childcare centers first closed down, it had a huge impact on children and families, but it had a huge impact on educators as well. Unlike a lot of the people that we serve, we don't have a job that we can do from home. We spent a long time, some of us, the ones who are closed, awaiting news about our return back to work. And when that time came, I know that myself and a lot of other educators that I spoke to felt pretty nervous and concerned about how the government and our organizations were going to keep us safe when we went back. We have the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare. It does so much amazing advocacy work for the field. They put together a comprehensive plan for reopening, and they put that together in collaboration with the childcare sector, and it went largely ignored by the Ontario government. So it kind of felt like the opportunity that we had to have a say in the things that actually affect us day to day went unnoticed. When we did reopen, restrictions and cleaning and screening protocols were pretty intense. They left a lot of us feeling like, if being together like this is so unsafe, then why are we here? However, the people in this field are super resilient. We showed up with a smile behind mask and shield each morning. We were eager to greet our families and children. I'm so thankful that we did, because I think that the field has become more responsive since that. We found a lot of new ways to come together. I would argue that we are more connected now than we were pre-pandemic. Professional learning opportunities have gone largely online, which makes them more accessible. I have never been this healthy since I started working in childcare, and I know that there's screening protocols and PPE, and I think a new intentionality around wellness that I have to thank for my health. The funding we have received for enhanced staffing from the government has been really crucial. It gives educators time for preparation and time to engage in professional learning during work hours, because that used to largely fall outside of those times. It gives us the opportunity to properly engage in the cleaning protocols. We feel less stressed when we do need to take time off to take care of ourselves or our family. I know that I and a lot of the people that I work with bear a sense of guilt when we have to be away, because we know that falls onto the shoulders of the people that we work with. Enhanced staffing has provided some confidence in those times. My organization in particular has spent a lot of time thinking about the pandemic as a portal. So we get the opportunity to choose what we leave behind in pre-pandemic and what we're going to move through the pandemic with. I think that the way that the early learning field has adjusted and adapted continuously over the past almost 2 years now really reflects that portal process.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. I love that, the portal, that some things you're going to leave behind. I think that's such an amazing thing for childcare and for everyone. Thank you. Jean-Baptiste, so from your experience, how has childcare been responsive to your needs as a childcare director pre and post pandemic?
Thank you. So if I go back to pre-COVID, I would like to say first, thank you to the whole team of LCCN, how we come up together as one team to try to figure out the question we had, which is now getting more tougher in related to the shortage in our sector. That we were able to be backed by the City of London, then a different organization, and then now we are still having that question on our heart, where we were still providing professional service, supporting our families as we accepted and the children. That's one thing that I would like to mention from my heart. The second, when we go to the COVID, I remember how it was tough for everyone, and we managed to support each other no matter what, and we resisted as one team again. We continued to support our families even when our centers were closed. That is something that we tried to adjust it so to make sure that we're not going to fall off. That is very, very good thing. Then the other thing I would like to recognize the hard work our staff are doing right now and before but now it's I don't, even if I think about it at this time, I don't want to think about it. Sometimes I tend to just forget to forget about it. But how they are able to adjust so quick. We were changing rules and regulations every week, every month, but they didn't lose hope. They didn't give up. Yes, we lost some due to the conditions, but the remaining ones are still positive, and with the support of the once again the city, different organization, and the LCCN, we support each other, and we are strong, and that's something I would like to say. So the adjustment we have been making is very, very encouraging.
For sure, Jean-Baptiste, and just thank you to our such hardworking educators. Just they're true superheroes, and they're just so amazing and critical to the field. Nicole, so I wanted to ask, from your experience, how has childcare been responsive to your needs pre and post-pandemic?
Well, it has been great, especially for my own children. Our centers did close down as well, but we were ones to provide the emergency care. So before that, I moved over to the preschool room, and then I actually got asked to move over to emergency care because I did do some after school programming as well. So I'm kind of like everywhere in the center. But in the after school program, that's where a lot of our emergency care children came in from. So there were a lot of and then other children. I found our centers to be really great in responsiveness for those families. We, right away applied and got that emergency care going. Me and my colleague, my teaching partner, decided to come together and said, well, here we go. We're now the early years educator. We're now their teacher and their homework buddy, and, someone to lean on, because, some of these children, it really hit them hard, and you didn't really realize, and you sometimes forget, different children just took the pandemic differently. We had one child that, had to wear his goggles. They weren't needed to wear goggles, but because we did, he felt safer if he did too, because he's like, well, how come you have to wear them? Then I'll wear them. So little things like that, we're very open, and anything they needed. And, I spent hours sitting down, relearning different math problems and science and English. And did I have to do that? not really. It wasn't really in, mandated in what we had to do. But for me as an educator and my passion for the field, I wanted to bring in what I believe strongly about, and that every child deserves that that person to lean on when they don't have their, when their parents have to go to work, because most of those parents were, firefighters and paramedics and nurses and everyone that had to be still leaving their house to go to work. So like others have said, the coming together has been incredible during this time. We're all overworked, underpaid, exhausted. It felt like longer hours, even though it wasn't. It felt like a lot. But the way we came together and just, came in strong, I believe, the childcare system really brought in a great responsiveness to, the families they could bring into. And there was a lot of families that actually couldn't even access childcare prior, but were able to access it for the emergency care. And I thought, let's show them, what we're made of. Let's help us fight for this universal care, because when we get families and community members involved and knowing, how passionate we, the educators really are in the centers, we can come together as a whole and have more support to back up our need for that universal childcare. So I would say, as much as I was upset that we weren't necessarily deemed essential, and yes, we were left out of every news article, and when it came to vaccinations, it was like, well, when do we get to go? Like, we've been working this whole time, and like the safety and everything, and it was just, but you kind of put that aside and you put in your passion into your work, and it really shows after, because those parents really, I got some phone calls and some notes saying like, thank you so much, like, you have no idea how much this means to us. And that to me just comes right to my heart. I'm like, I treat your child as if it's my own, and I would want my own children to be treated like this. So for me, as hard as the pandemic has been, it really opened my eyes on how much more I want to be a part of this team and stay in the early years as much as possible.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Nicole. That was so powerful. And just at the end, how you're saying you treat them as your own children, the care you put in. And I just envision like you're a part of that community rallying around families during, the most difficult part of COVID. So thank you so much. Okay, so our last question is, let's talk money. So Alicia Vanderwolf is going to ask our final question.
Okay, so I know many of you have spoken about money so far, but when you're considering the financial aspects of childcare, so things like cost, wages, and like operation fundings, what do you see as the most important and why?
Thank you, Alicia. I guess we'll start with Kate on this one.
Sure. Well, I'm going to be repetitive here. $10 a day childcare, a wage grid for ECEs. Those two things are only possible with political will. So we need to see governments investing in a significant way. Federal government has made an offer. We need to see the provincial government accept that offer so that we deliver $10 a day childcare and improve the working conditions, including wages and salaries for people who work in early learning and childcare.
Yes, so succinct. That's what we need, the wage grid and the $10 a day. Kelsey, do you have thoughts on this question? The financial aspects of childcare, what do you see as most important to you and why?
So I think the default answer to expect from an educator would be educator wages. I've worked with a lot of educators from single income families who have been forced to maintain 2 or more jobs, leaves them stressed and tired and burnt out physically, mentally, professionally. Another unfortunate result is many dedicated, passionate professionals end up leaving the field or not entering the field to begin with, so that they can pursue higher paying employment. But I think that the educator wage issue is one that we're all aware of. I kind of want to talk a little bit about something different. A lot of what affects myself and other educators day to day is connected to the way that our organizations spend the money from operation funding and parent fees. Organizations that invest their earnings back into things like professional learning opportunities for staff, benefits and savings programs, comprehensive staff training, increasing wage grids, accessible technology, high quality materials and environments, and consistent, well-rounded staffing models are going to have happier, more dedicated educators, and that's going to come through in the care that they provide. I think about my organization, and so many of the ways that they choose to invest their money become evident in my work in my classroom. The time and space that I'm given for professional learning and training comes through in my base of knowledge, the relationships that I'm able to form with colleagues, community resources that I can connect with, the staffing models that we work with give me time to prepare for my classroom, allow me to feel less stressed, more confident when I need to be away from work to care for myself or my family. All of these things are important in ensuring that I feel like I'm valued in my organization and that I can be the best educator that I can be to provide high quality childcare for children and families.
Thank you, Kelsey. Jeff, would you like to answer this one next?
And again, I refer back to my experience as an employer. For me, it comes down to cost. It's as simple as that. Cost of childcare prevents people from entering the workforce. It removes people from the workforce, affecting not just my organization, but I would argue the majority of organizations within our province and country. Access to childcare is one thing, but the cost of childcare is certainly a barrier for us from a recruitment perspective, from a retention perspective. All of the other points around operational budgets, et cetera. I could certainly talk to that, but from an employer's perspective, it's all about cost and accessibility.
For sure, Jeff, that's such a good point. And it's such an interesting dichotomy that the fees are so high, but our wages are not that high. So it's just, I don't even know if the public is aware of that dichotomy, I guess. Nicole, do you have thoughts on this question?
I do. And it kind of links to what I said prior about loving the toddler room and why I'm actually completing my degree and then hoping to move on to my master's degree. For me, as a student and as an educator in the rooms, I would love to be working as a toddler educator full time, but I cannot. As a single mom of 4, yes, my eldest is 18, but he still costs money. My youngest is 6, so I still have, the younger ages as well. It can't happen as a single mom. I cannot afford to do my passion, and which really sucks. But I've kind of learned ways to turn it around and be more positive. And so I decided to upgrade to my degree in early childhood leadership. I would like to move on to my master's degree, master's degree, and then become a professor for the ECE and ECL students, because I just have such a passion for the earlier sector that is just something that I can do to help promote and educate educators. And I love that too. I would like to also stay with the earliers as well, with advocating and promoting early childhood, but it's just for me as a single mom, I cannot afford to do my single passion. So I've had to branch out and spend money to make more money, I guess. So so for me, it's wages for educators is huge for me.
Thank you, Nicole. And it's such a common story that, I have the same story. I couldn't stay on the floor as a single woman either, because just the income wasn't enough, to rent apartments and buy a vehicle. So, and especially you with 4 children as a single mom. So such an interesting story, but we're lucky we get to still keep you in the field and when you become a professor. John Baptiste, so when considering the financial aspects of childcare, what do you see most important to you and why?
That's a good question. So to me is, as I mentioned, it's we need to build a system. When we are building a system, there is no part we should leave behind. If we leave one small thing behind, we're not going to have the right system. What I know what there is right now, what we have, our staff are getting low paid comparing to the other sector where they did the same, they have the same knowledge as the others and so on and so on. So we have to make sure that we have to support our staff. There is a pay, there is a training, there is retention. There are a lot of staff getting involved into that part. We also need to make sure our children and parents have access to childcare. So also in that sector, we need to make sure that it does balance. And when we also think about quality, we need also to make sure that we have qualified staff to make sure that the children are getting what they are supposed to get for the potential development. So I would say we need to make sure that we understand what we are looking for and make sure there is no piece left behind, because if we leave, we will be resolving this issue, but the other issue there, because they are linked, they are connected, we're not going to make a system like we won't have the outcome where we are looking as a society.
Thank you so much, Jean-Baptiste, and thank you to all our participants. We're starting to wrap up for the evening. We have a thank you and then a few audience questions we've polled. So Kira, Paul, if you would like to share our thank you message.
Yeah, so I would like to begin by extending gratitude on behalf of LCCN for the participation of our viewers. The time you took in attending tonight's meeting is greatly appreciated and will help spread awareness for universal childcare. Thank you to LCCN for hosting tonight's meeting, to our community partners from Strive, and my fellow peers from Fanshawe College. Tonight wouldn't have been made possible without you and all your dedicated hard work. A special thank you goes out to all of tonight's panelists. Jeff Rice, we appreciate the real-life stories you supplied, expressing the strong need for accessible and affordable childcare. Most of us were able to really resonate with the examples and therefore support your professional perspectives. Kate Graham, we support your advocacy toward promoting the importance of prioritizing childcare as an essential service throughout society. During the pandemic, the importance of the ECEC sector really shone, and so did the positive impact it played on society. Jean-Baptiste, your perspectives toward quality childcare were easily relatable. We agree that it's important to foster the strong ECEC foundation with adequate programming, positive and enthusiastic staff, good materials, and infrastructure. These are all necessary components in building a supported childcare system that works effectively. Kelsey Swans, it resonated with us when you described childcare as responsive, intentional, and to have the ability to change the world. Your statement proves that childcare systems really do make our world a better place. And Nicole Laroque, your passion about working with toddlers is truly empowering. It is obvious that you enjoy making a difference in the lives of families through your educated practices, similarly to how your own childcare experiences made a positive impact in your own life. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Kira, for that thoughtful thank you. I have some questions, but I actually first want to just put the floor out to our participants if they have any final thoughts or anything they'd like to share in general about childcare in their community.
I just feel like we need to say thank you. Everybody on this call, I've been scrolling through and looking at the photos. You've done amazing things over the past 2 years. And I, have had one family example, but there are literally tens of thousands of people that you have played a transformative role in their lives. And, drop in the odd thank you card to my daughter's daycare bag does not feel like enough. I don't think that we say thank you enough. And so I just hope you feel extremely proud of the work that you do and know how incredibly valued and transformative it is for the London community. We do not say it enough. We need to start saying it more. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. I echo that sentiment. And does any other panelists have some final thoughts they'd like to share? Okay, I guess I'll go to a few last questions. So one of the questions we got as professionals in the field, what is required of us to see our province recognize this important plan? So the plan we're obviously referring to is the National Childcare Program. Sure.
How political can we be? You need to call people who are sitting in the provincial government, in the Ford government, particularly Stephen Lecce. You need to bother them, like get loud. I know that they keep talking about trying to fight for a good deal. It is a good deal. They need to take this deal and make this happen. If it is a delay for solely political purposes, that is not good enough. And so, as I said, it has been a unison voice from other parties and from community leaders, and we have to keep pushing louder and louder and louder until it happens. So tomorrow, phone Stephen Lecce, and then phone him the next day, and phone him the next day until we get this done.
That was just an amazing little segue, because our colleagues at the AACO and the OCBCC are here, and they are literally doing a campaign on exactly what you just said, calling Stephen Lecce, sending an email of just how important childcare is to you. So yes, I've shared the link, and Alana Powell has shared the link as well, so thank you. We have another question is to the educators, so maybe to Kelsey or Nicole. What makes you stay in the field?
I think I spoke a lot about that tonight. The people, the children, the other amazing people that I get to work with every day that always inspire and challenge and push my thinking farther. It's an honor to be around that type of person all the time. So I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, the same with me, Kelsey. It's the people, and it's how I know I'm making a difference in that child's life, and how other educators have made differences in my own children's life. So as much as I have to, move towards a different way, I still want to full force stay in the early years and help advocate and help support and do all I can do to stay in this field. So it's very important to me, and it's a big passion of mine. And yeah, the people make all the difference.
Thank you, Kelsey and Nicole. I think that's a great note to end on. So thank you so much to our panelists. Jean-Baptiste has some last words.
Yes, I was going to answer the last question you asked to Nicole and Kelsey. It's the same thing. To me, it's the impact, the positive impact we are making for the children and families, community. Because other than that, if we see how we are struggling, it's very, very hard to understand how we can still there. But as we come up as a team, and we say that's not your problem, it's our problem. So we can leave the boat alone in the ocean, but that's why we're looking for support. And we appreciate everyone who is here today to support our mission, and that we have to keep going, because it has a good impact in our life of children, families, and our country.
Yes, thank you so much, Jean-Baptiste. Yes, as Megan said in the chat, childcare is good for everyone. And if we circle back to our, what does childcare mean to you? I would say everything, as our panelists would say as well. Thank you so much for attending tonight. Please continue to be in touch with Strive, Fanshawe, and the Licensed Childcare Network. We can share the links in the chat for you to keep following us. And again, let's keep advocating for that $10 a day childcare. Thank you so much for the panelists, and it just brings me such pride to see all these folks from London and the surrounding area. You know, we're a community and we're strong, and we're continuing to advocate for what we want and need, and that's childcare. And I think we're making a lot of headway, and it's going to happen soon. So, all right, thank you so much, everyone.